Hey everyone, welcome back to Coach Quip. I'm Coach Robyn.
I'm Coach Chris.
And today we are giving you the long-awaited episode we talked about 1 or 2 episodes ago. It's all about water.
That's right. We know that drinking water has countless benefits. We also know that all of us could use to drink more, most likely.
Yeah, I'm behind today.
Okay, so in this episode, we've broken it down into the needs of regular people of why drinking water is good, and then very specific athlete reasons that you should be drinking water. And then we're going to talk about how much water you should be drinking and what counts towards your hydration needs. So all of that coming up in this episode.
This is one of those. This is like the sleep episode. These are things that you can do that are so simple, but can yet make some of the biggest differences in your just everyday life, not to mention your sports and athletic performance.
Yeah. So grab a glass of water and come on back. We're going to jump right into it. Let's talk about the general benefits of drinking water. All right, so benefit number 1 is that your digestive system depends on it. So you need water in your body to eliminate waste, and this is through your bowels and also through waste in your muscles, waste in your body just in general. Water is the carrier for that. We know that dehydration can lead to digestive problems, including constipation, and like not to get too heavy on poop here, but like
it's gonna come up.
But like runners, this is a serious concern, right? I have so many athletes who are like making notes in Training Peaks, like on their long run days specifically, like didn't poop, like
especially beforehand, yeah.
So we know, like I know this is something that as a runner, my first time being quoted in Runner's World was about talking about poop.
Well, I mean, we do it every day, most of us,
yeah.
Right? And it is a huge source of stress, and a way that we can alleviate that is by drinking enough water.
Exactly. Yep. So there's your solution right there. When we have digestive problems like overly acidic stomach, it increases the risk of GERD, right? Is that what it's called? Digestive issues of like acid reflux. So increases the risk of stomach ulcers. So this is another thing. If you've ever been running and had like an acid reflux burp,
yeah,
that is horrible.
The verp.
Is that what it's called?
The vomit burp. Yeah, verping is real.
I've never heard it called
that. So
That's
here,
amazing.
you can just stop listening now. More water, more pooping, less burping. Story. We don't even need to go further.
All right, thanks. We'll see you. We'll see you next time. All right, so water also helps form saliva and mucus, and so it helps keep your mouth fresh, right? Like this is important because we want to make sure that we don't have like bad stinky breath. Like if you've ever felt like you're like, oh wow, I have coffee mouth, right? It's because we're not drinking enough water, which stimulates the saliva and mucus. Obviously that's important for like oral hygiene. Your dentist will probably tell you to drink more water as well. And we want to make sure that we're consuming water over sugary beverages, right? Because that's going to lead to tooth decay and, oral health problems. Also just not great for your body in general, right? Tons of sugar. So water is the priority there. And then finally, we mentioned removing waste. We're flushing the body through the process of sweating, which is important to us as athletes, but then also through bowel movements and urination. And so water just keeps the whole system moving smooth.
Right. Yeah, you need it.
Gotta have it.
I'm not sure I can top the poop number 1 because that's a big one, right? But I'm gonna go for the brain. So water is what cushions your brain, your spinal cord, and other sensitive tissues, right? It really is not only a thing that helps us move things, but it also is a protective layer. So when we're dehydrated or we're not consuming enough water, it can actually affect our brain structure and function. It really is integral in the production of hormones and neurotransmitters, which if your neurotransmitters are off, your muscles are firing poorly, the wheels fall off, right? Mm-hmm. If we have a period of prolonged dehydration, we actually can start to see issues with thinking and reasoning, which is probably why we see what we see at the end of a long run when someone in the summer especially is getting into those high teens, and they're dehydrated, and they probably went into it dehydrated and didn't have a frickin' handheld, right? and then all of a sudden, you don't have a personality, or you get really emotional. It's not usually a sign of your fitness. It is a sign of dehydration and usually lack of nutrition too. But yes, we've seen it it will happen again here in a few short months.
Yeah, that's so real. Like on the days when you're super dehydrated that you just can't think right. But I don't think that we ever think that it's about water, right? Like
True.
When I'm talking to a lot of my athletes and we're talking about the late miles in an Ironman race, for example, right? I'll tell them, if you find yourself emotional or you hate everything or you get really angry or you're just all over the place, you probably need to consume some calories. What I probably need to be telling them is also check your hydration.
Yeah, little water, little calories.
Exactly. So super important there.
This is why, and I know we're getting into the athlete stuff in a second, but this is why I love a handheld filled with fluids, calories, and electrolytes. Because you are ticking all of the boxes with one thing. As long as you like the flavor and you're into it, it's super move.
Yeah, we're going to talk about what qualifies as hitting those hydration needs in just a few minutes. But number 3 for our general sort of wellness is it helps maintain blood pressure. So dehydration can lead to, it makes your blood become thicker, and that's associated with decreased blood pressure. But for folks who have some sort of like vertigo symptoms, or if you experience when you stand up and you get lightheaded, that's usually from low blood pressure, and being dehydrated can be a factor in that.
Piggybacking on that, when it comes to blood actually being thicker, again, I'm leaning into the athlete side of things a little bit, but when we run in heat and humidity, our blood also becomes thicker. So all of the more important, especially if you're going to be training or racing in a hot environment, to go into it properly hydrated. Last but not least, your hydration levels help make minerals and nutrients accessible. It is the carrier, right? These things dissolve in water, which actually makes it possible for them to be delivered to different parts of the body. Without that, they're not going anywhere. They're just sitting by the side of the road.
All right, so those are our general reasons why drinking water is great, but our athlete-specific reasons also play into that. So these are the ones that we think really stand out for our endurance athletes. Also for anybody who is on a fitness journey, right? These are applicable to anybody trying to improve their overall health and well-being. First up is that it lubricates the joints. So cartilage, which is found in your joints and in the discs of your spine, contain about 80% water.
That is crazy.
Isn't that bonkers? Like the statistics of how much water is in us, right? 60% of the body about is made up of water. But into that area, which is so crucial for runners and for athletes, 80% of your cartilage is made up of water. So if that's low, you're going to be low on the cartilage side, and that's going to be a cause of a lot of pain and potential injuries for folks. Long-term dehydration can really reduce the joint's shock-absorbing abilities, and running being a single leg exercise, being something that you're always talking about, the force impact of running. You need to be lubed in order to be able to sustain 2 to 3 times your body weight on a single leg. Absolutely. Yeah. And I am terrible, aware but terrible of how much water I'm drinking during the weekends. For some reason, even though I'm here on a Saturday, like it's not that different of a day, but I will actually notice myself being very away from my water bottle for whatever reason. It's not top of mind. And then I'll get to like noon and get up from sitting and talking to someone and be like, oh, my hips, right? And it's every time. If I get a little dehydrated, I just start to feel that creakiness set in, especially after a run. Second, your airways depend on it, right? When we're dehydrated, airways become restricted because the body's trying to minimize water loss. So it's like, if we want oxygen to be delivered into other areas of our body, we need to have appropriate hydration levels so that our airways are fully open. If you are dehydrated and have allergies or asthma, that is going to be exacerbated when you don't have proper hydration levels. That alone should convince you. Do you want enough oxygen? Yeah. Drink water. Yeah, that's a great segue into number 3. It does deliver oxygen into your body, right? So not only, the asthma and allergies part is so, I just had like this moment of thinking back through all my athletes in the spring when they start to have those seasonal allergies, or even in the fall, seasonal allergies, and how awful running feels. Well, if that can be offset a little bit by drinking more water, that's a pretty great solution, right? It's not going to eliminate it completely, but definitely on your side. And then moving oxygen through the body. So the blood is more than 90% water. So it is essential that you stay hydrated so that it can carry oxygen throughout your other parts of your body. And when you are running, cycling, doing any sort of endurance sport, this is essential. Like people dope to try to get more oxygen into their body, right?
Yeah.
Like it is
or
a performance
enhancing.
Or you could just drink more water. There, we did it for you. WADA approved.
Next up, water. It helps you regulate your body temperature. So water is stored in the middle layers of the skin. It comes to the surface when you sweat and the body heats up. As it evaporates, air meets that, whisks it away. That's what keeps your body temperature down. Some scientists have suggested that when there's too little water in the body, heat storage will actually increase because you're going to be a little bit less tolerant to heat. I cannot emphasize enough in hot environments how this compounds, because even if it's humid out, your body's going to keep trying to send water that's not there, and you're not cooling down, and it's only likely getting warmer. Having a lot of water in the body is actually really helpful because you're going to be able to reduce the physical strain it takes if heat stress is occurring during exercise. So we're not saying drown yourselves in water so that your tummy's sloshing, but especially as you head into one of these longer efforts, usually on the weekend, make sure that you're properly hydrating, the 1 to 2 days, 1 to 4 days prior. We'll get into how to do that.
If you need any evidence of you should be drinking more water, I think this is the biggest one for me, because we've done past episodes about how temperature impacts your pace. And if you can better appropriately regulate your body temperature, you can't control the weather, obviously, but if you can control your core temperature, your body temperature, it's going to be putting you closer to the paces that you're capable of and offset some of that damage that happens when we're overheating.
Yeah.
Number 5 is that it boosts performance during exercise. Like, again, this is a performance enhancer for us. If you are hydrated, you will perform better. Dehydration decreases performance. There have been studies that say it decreases performance, athletic performance in activities over 30 minutes. And I would say for a lot of us, that's the activities that we're doing as endurance athletes. So for most of our workouts, we're going to want to be super hydrated to make sure that we're getting the full benefit.
All right, last, weight loss, body comp. This is an upside. Water might actually help with weight loss and improving body comp if it's consumed instead of sweetened juices or sodas, right? Less available calories, duh. Not only is your mouth not going to get as decayed, but you're consuming less overall calories, so you're going to be a little bit more of a burner, right? Preloading with water before meals, or I even notice, like if I drink enough during a meal, it does make me feel fuller faster because our body can't really tell the difference between hunger and fullness cues. So a lot of times when you feel really hungry, you just need some extra fluids too. So it prevents you from overeating it, and it helps you feel full and frankly fuller for longer so that you're not just mindlessly continuing to snack.
This is a great one for those people who are chronic snackers, or who snack by default when they're bored or stressed or angry or whatever. Like if we are an emotional eater or a snacker when you don't really need to be snacking. I will always remember somebody telling me, take a big glass of water and then wait 10 minutes and see if you're still hungry. And I think that was like a tip that totally changed my perspective on the importance of water and how we can differentiate those cues. Okay, so now we've talked about the benefits of drinking water. Let's go into sources of water. So obviously, drinking water is the best way to drink water. It sounds dumb, but
you can stop listening now. We've given you everything you need.
Crushing it today with the points here. But really, some people struggle with just drinking plain water.
My dad. Terrible.
Which is why we're good buddies.
Yes, he's terrible at it. I have to shove it at him.
Yeah. So here's a tip with this, right? I'm drinking warm water in my water bottle right now, and I found that drinking cold water, particularly in the winter, does not do it right in my body. Like, I don't want to drink it. Slightly warm tap water, sounds kind of gross, but I'm crushing water in the last week since I started doing this. Other ways would be to flavor your water with lime or lemon, or cucumber if you're getting fancy, something like that. Sources of water, non-alcoholic beverages. So you have your waters, and I would say seltzer water is included in there too. That is also part of your hydration. Non-alcoholic beverages, yes, coffee and tea count. There have been, there's a lot of conversation around...
Recent too. Yeah,
has
it's
it
recent.
resurfaced?
Yeah.
Yeah. I always remember hearing when I was younger, like, oh, it dehydrates you. It's not actually counting towards your fluid needs because it's diuretic and, with caffeine.
Just spill my water. It's fine.
Do you want to clean it up now or just keep going?
Just leave it. Just keep going. Apropos.
Amazing. A lot of people used to think that they were dehydrating, but that myth has been debunked, and I think that's really important. So coffee and tea do count towards your fluid needs. The diuretic effect of coffee, as an example, does not offset the hydration. So while we would say don't slam coffee as your only fluid.
Oh, that would be a lot of caffeine.
And I think some people drink decaf or something. That's a thing. I've heard of it. I don't know. We want to make sure that we're still prioritizing water. Other things like milk or milk alternatives, so your oat milk, your soy milk, and fruit juices are also good sources of fluid. But the asterisk on that is just we have to be thinking about the caloric intake too. So if we're just loading our fluid intake with high calorie beverages, that's going to cut into our calories for the day. And they don't have the same sort of nutritional profile as a meal, right? So we want to make sure that we're watching out for those high sugar beverages. That would be something like your sodas, your sweetened teas. I was thinking about when I was a kid, we used to drink Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
And it was like a little packet, and you
put
put a full cup of sugar in this pitcher. And just like thinking about a full cup of sugar right now.
It's a lot of sugar.
Crushes me. But yeah, like those sort of child beverages often are very high sugar, so we want to make sure that we're avoiding those.
One that Coach J-Ro talks about a lot from a Get Hydrated standpoint is looking at the foods too that you can take in, which you don't always think of like, oh, let me drink my food. But really there are a lot of foods that have a pretty high water content, things that are obvious like watermelon, it's in the name, but oranges and spinach. All of those things, which is why they sound so good in the summer when it's super hot, right? But a lot of it can add up quite a bit. I don't know how you do that math, but it does help add to your total fluid ounces when you take in, especially really moist fruits and vegetables.
Yeah. So how much water do we actually need? I think we've heard different things throughout our lives. I remember the 8 cups of fluid, right? The 8 cups of water a day. Was that?
Yeah, that was like part of the food pyramid, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
But if you think about the math.
We are old. We remember the food pyramid?
I think some of our listeners might remember the food pyramid too, but 8-ounce glasses of water a day, which would put you at 64 ounces. That is not enough, right? So what we know is that we actually need more water than that because water is lost through your body through everyday functions. Besides sweating, going to the bathroom, you also lose water through breathing. And you do that all day, right? So your body, if you're not sweating or going to the bathroom, you're constantly losing water, so you have to constantly be replacing it. But a person's individual water needs varies from person to person, and so it depends on your age, your activity levels, maybe the climate that you're in. It can be a lot of different factors. There's no fixed amount of water, but there are some general guidelines that experts have put out. So how much, well, before we do that, question for you. How much water do you think the average U.S. adult consumes each day?
Like fluid ounces or cups?
Let's go ounces. Yeah.
I would say 50 ounces.
Very, very close. So we said that if the 8
really?
8 ounce,
was I close?
8-ounce glasses a day was the target, like way back, right? Which we know is too low. That's 64 ounces. Average adult in the United States drinks 44 ounces of water a day.
Oh my gosh. I would be a disaster.
Yeah. I think a lot of us are disasters, and that might be part of the reason. But we all need more water. So let's go through what the new recommendations are. So
according to the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, the average recommended daily intake of water for both food and drink is, for women, 11.5 cups a day. So you're looking at like 80 to 90 ounces. For men, 15.5 cups per day. You can do the math on that, 15 times 8. And then for kids, anywhere from 5 to 11 cups a day. Again, and a cup is 8 ounces, depending on age. Again, this is always going to be personal. It's, you want to manage things like, or, check out things like what your pee looks like, how you feel. Do you have sloshy tummy? Is it hot out, right? It's going to be on the higher end of that range. But clearly, this ranges quite a bit.
I think we should post the pee chart.
We could do an entire one on pee. I was just thinking this.
You know, when we say it on here, we
Urine
often do
is
it.
important.
Yeah.
And it's something that like we have the chance to like check in and look at multiple times a day.
It's very true, and our charts here have been pretty helpful.
Yeah.
But yeah. All right, there are a couple of times, you should always be drinking water, but there are times in your life that are more important to make sure that you're really staying hydrated. Among them are when you have a fever or when you're sick. Always say slam the fluids when you're getting sick, right? Make sure that you stay hydrated. If you have diarrhea or vomiting, so you are expelling a lot of fluids at that time, you want to make sure that you are replenishing those. And that's always, I think, a tough time too, because the thought of drinking water when you're sick can also be really tough.
Yes.
So,
sometimes you have to do slow reintroduction. But at the end of the day, more is going out than is coming in, so you have to offset that eventually.
Absolutely. When the weather is hot, we want to make sure that we are staying on top of our fluid consumptions. And when you sweat a lot, so just in your workouts that are high sweat, we want to make sure that we are replacing that fluid.
And although it's rare, it's absolutely possible to drink too much water, and this condition is known as intoxication, or in the sports world as hyponatremia. So be mindful of that, right? Especially before heading into a big race, and especially if you're smaller stature, we don't want you just drowning yourself, right? These are things that you want to be monitoring more during your training than making up for it heading into a race. A 2021 study suggests that the median intake of water needed for water intoxication is about 5.3 liters over 4 hours, right? But
that's so much
that's
water.
so much water. But really, it's an average. And so if you're especially a smaller stature person, it might not be quite that much in order to make a difference. All that to say, just manage your water during your training and the rest will follow.
It's not something that you can cram. So like that's the point of this, right? Is like
5.3.
Yes, exactly. 5.3 liters over 4 hours. That is when you are cramming for the test, right? Same thing with sleep. Same thing with your training, right? You're not going to get the benefits of training by having a really heavy weekend and then not doing anything for the rest of the time, right? So we have to pay attention to how we're spacing this out. And to your point, like your tip of having it early in the day, if we're cramming at night because we're past on our water intake, or we're behind on our water intake, you're going to be getting up to use the restroom. So like we have to make sure that this is something that's consistent throughout the day.
What's your tip?
My tip, well,
you got a hack.
My hack. Oh, this is a good question. So I think like the lightly flavored water or seltzer is like my go-to because I have a hard time just straight up drinking water. But I think the warm water is my hack right now.
You're right.
What's your hack?
I think you should drink out of the things that you're excited to drink out of, right? And maybe it's the fact that I'm in my 40s now and I know that I don't like to drink out of plastic cups. Like it just doesn't seem fun to me. Mm-hmm. So drinking out of things like metal containers or glass jars, I notice if it's a wider mouth, I'm going to drink a lot more of it in a sitting it's just easier for me to gulp down. So even in our kitchen, like I will put the ones I like out in front so that I'm a lot more likely to grab them, which means I'm a lot more likely to use them and drink them.
I love that. That's a great one.
All right, so there you have it. There's episode 177 that we promised you all about water, not only why you need it for general wellness, but also as an athlete. We hope that you take some of this. Maybe you're a little thirsty now. You're going to take in another 10, 12, 16 ounces today. Just stack it gradually. You got this.
Thanks for listening to Coach Quip. Original music performed by Ment. Follow us online on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Edge Athlete Lounge. Our podcast lives in the blog section of our website. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast, and you can check out the show notes for additional ways to contact us. Ready, set, onward we go.